Hey everyone, Supercell Celeste here. Today's Monday, February 5th, and today we'll be looking at some world weather going on. I'll be using the European model for all of this. We start off here in Europe, looking at precipitation and seeing any low pressure systems moving through. Right now, for today, we have a weaker storm moving across between to the south of Iceland and a stationary frontal system draped across parts of Scotland into Denmark and northern Germany into Poland, bringing some lighter rain amounts to that area today. As we go into tomorrow, that storm to the south of Iceland actually strengthens quite a bit, going down into 982 millibars right here to the north of Scotland, and still bringing some lighter rain amounts across parts of northern England, Scotland, into Denmark and Poland. As we go further out, the cold front moves through, bringing rainfall into southern portions of England, into the Netherlands, northern Germany, and Poland. And as the center of that low moves into the Baltic states, some snowfall possible with that across southern Sweden and Norway into the Baltics. Going further out, could see a more stronger storm by Thursday, the end of this week. Now, the European model is actually showing snow possible across Ireland and northern portions of England. We'll see if that verifies. I do think there should be some snowfall with that, but the European is showing heavy snow. I don't know if it'll be that heavy yet. We'll see if it's cold enough to actually get heavy snow across northern England and Ireland. So that's something to keep an eye on. Also, heavy rainfall moving into portions of Portugal as a separate storm system associated with that moves through. And this storm actually deepens a lot. By Friday, we're talking 972 millibars, potentially low 970 millibars, right there between France and England. I would expect some high wind gusts with this. We'll take a look at that. With such a strong storm system like this, also bringing rainfall into England, northern France, much of Western Europe actually could get rain with this. Not heavy amounts. And then going further out into this weekend coming up, that same storm brings snowfall into southern portions of Norway and Sweden, maybe even northern Denmark. And then a separate storm associated with that moves into southern France. Could get more rainfall into France and Italy, southern Europe with this one. And then just going on into next week, the weather tends to calm down a bit with a large high pressure system, 1,038 millibars across Europe, keeping things calm for next week. Just taking a quick look at rainfall amounts by next week. Heaviest amounts across portions of southern England, northern France, Netherlands, and Belgium. Also across coastal western Spain into Portugal, another area where they could get the most rainfall out of this over the next week. In general, not huge amounts. Northern Europe is looking like they'll get a little bit more, but the Nordic regions up here not getting much of anything over the next week. Just very light amounts. Let's take a look at snowfall. Snowfall over the next week. Let's go to that first storm by Thursday that brings the snow. Now, I think this is overdone. The European is saying as much as 15 centimeters of snow, which I don't think there's going to be that much. That seems like a way overdone here across Ireland and northern England and Wales to the north of London. I do think they should get some snow mixing in, but definitely not 15 centimeters worth. I would say more in the 1 to 3 centimeter range for that area. But it'll be nice to see snow falling across England and Ireland. Otherwise, over the next week, let's go all the way to the end of the cycle. Like I said, Europe, like I always said, Europe is has been very warm since December. Not a lot of snow has been happening. The majority of the snow is just staying across northern Europe into Sweden, Norway, and the Baltic states. Just overall, has not been a snowy weather pattern since November for much of Europe. Unless you live in the Nordics, they've been getting quite a bit over the past few weeks. And with that, actually, first let's look at some wind gusts with that storm on Thursday. Here, let's go to Thursday. Yeah, could get upwards of 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles per hour across far western Spain, maybe northern Portugal, with that storm on Thursday, and put some just gusty winds across much of Western Europe, upwards of 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. Yeah, not a huge wind event, I don't think, with this one, except, like I said, in far western Spain and Portugal. I'm not seeing wind gusts over 100 kilometers per hour, pretty much not anywhere. Then going to temperatures, like I said, Europe is just still very warm. This is for today, this afternoon in Europe. We can see temperatures as high as 10 degrees Celsius all the way across Ireland. Pretty much across Ireland here into northern England, all the way up into Germany, and then into the Balkans, where the Balkans are actually over 15 degrees Celsius today. So very warm look. You don't get below 0 degrees Celsius until you reach as far north as Stockholm and into Belarus. As it plays out, you can see this widespread warmth continues across southern Europe. Europe actually gets divided in half, it looks like, by a frontal system with very cold to the north and warm to the south. You can easily see the frontal system right there. By the end of the week, the Nordics could get quite cold. You could see widespread, especially Finland, widespread, almost the whole country below negative 20 degrees Celsius, or about below 0 degrees Fahrenheit by Thursday night. And even Stockholm and Oslo getting as cold as negative 10, negative 15 possible. But let's go back a bit to Saturday. But yeah, like I said, widespread warmth continues across the majority of Europe. Look at this, all this temperatures over 10 degrees Celsius, even 15 there across the Balkans, close to 20 actually, I see here for Belgrade, Serbia. Just overall very warm look. Now by next week, there could be a stronger front that brings colder temperatures in. This is over a week away, so don't look at the number. Don't dwell too much on these numbers, but in general, you could see widespread temperatures possibly below 0 degrees Celsius by next Wednesday night. So could get back to a more seasonable weather pattern by the middle of next week. Next place we'll look at is Asia, where the big thing happening right now is over here in Japan, where the greater Tokyo region is having heavy snowfall right now. Rare snowfall happening across greater Tokyo at the moment. It's canceling flights, rail lines are being suspended, train services, buses. Rare snowfall across Tokyo. Heavier snowfall up in the higher elevations, but there's actually snowfall falling into the plains across northern portions of Tokyo. Very rare event, actually. Tokyo doesn't usually see snowfall, especially heavy snowfall. Now, that's the main thing happening right now, while the rest of Asia is pretty quiet. And as that storm system moves away pretty quickly pretty much over the next 12 hours, it'll be gone across Japan. And then the rest of Asia tends to just quiet down in terms of weather Could see some heavier rain across southeastern China. And just overall, not a lot going on over the next week. A couple little snow systems across southern Russia and Kazakhstan up here. Overall, just not a lot after that. In terms of temperatures, you can see obviously Siberia extremely cold, -30 to -40 degrees Celsius up here. Pretty warm across Kazakhstan actually, only 0 to -5 degrees Celsius. Kazakhstan is usually extremely cold this time of year, and that's very warm for them. And then going out over the next few days, southern portions of Russia actually warm up quite a bit. Only -5 degrees Celsius in this region. And then going out even further, I'm not seeing any major Arctic blasts for Korea, northeastern China over the next few days. And actually, eastern China warms up quite a bit by this weekend into next week. You can see widespread temperatures start reaching up to 10, 15, even 20 degrees Celsius starting next week, which is well above average for this time of year. That's about 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And that continues to the end of the cycle. So next week looks very warm across eastern China and Korea, South Korea. This would be next Wednesday. Let's go back a bit. Yeah, by next Wednesday, the European is forecasting widespread temperatures as high as 20 degrees Celsius across eastern China, including Shanghai. 10 degrees, 15 degrees Celsius across Beijing, and 12 for Seoul. Very warm for this time of year for February. And even portions of Siberia warm up a bit, only going down to -20 degrees Celsius, -25, or about 0 to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, so even that area warms up. Next, we'll be looking at Australia, where at the moment we have this area what you're seeing right here. This is looking at precipitation. This 995 millibar low is actually the remnants of tropical cyclone Kirili that moved into Western Australia and then came down like this. The remnant low of that is bringing some heavy rain into southeastern Australia. Could move into Sydney by early tomorrow over the next 12 hours. It'll be a quick heavy rain, but it should only last a few hours, nothing too bad. And over the next week, you can see the monsoonal rains stay mainly across northern portions of Australia, while the rest of the country and even New Zealand stay pretty dry. Could get a tropical cyclone. The European model is saying a tropical cyclone could potentially develop here to the northeast of Australia, right there. As we go out in time, not too strong, only going down to about 990 millibars, but could get pretty close to New Caledonia, right here. Could bring some very heavy rain there across New Caledonia, and then just letting the cycle play out. In terms of rainfall amounts, you can see the heavy rain associated with that remnant low across southeastern Australia, maybe up to as high as 50 millimeters, or about 2 inches of rain for the Sydney region. And also maybe clipping far southern New Zealand here. But overall, you could see by the end of this cycle, heaviest rain stays across far northern Australia with the monsoonal trough, and across New Caledonia here, associated with that potential tropical cyclone developing. Though both of those areas could get as high as 100 millimeters of rain, or about 4 inches of rainfall equivalent. In terms of temperature, but there was that large heat wave going on in Australia with temperatures over 40, 45 degrees Celsius. It has calmed down a bit this week. 40 degrees Celsius is more in line what usually happens in the summertime there because this is a desert after all. But as we go into the end of the week, Western Australia heats up quite a bit. You can see even getting up as high as 40 degrees Celsius all the way to the coast here, including Perth. And as we let that play out, it stays there for a few days, still 40 degrees Celsius by Saturday, all the way to the coast, Western Australia coast. And by Sunday, still potentially getting as high as 45 to 47 degrees Celsius, or about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And then going into next week, pulls back inland a bit, only temperatures back down to about 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit for Perth. Coastal areas cool down a bit while the interior stays very hot. Southern cold front next week does cool down the southern regions back to average, only going up to 25 degrees Celsius across the southern coast, while to the north of that is where the heat wave continues. And that's about that. Next we'll go to Africa. In terms of precipitation and rainfall, obviously the equatorial areas with the ITCZ gets monsoonal rains every day, and also across Madagascar flares up every afternoon. That's the majority of where the rain will be over the next week or so. A couple of storm systems bring some pop-up thunderstorms across South Africa. In terms of rainfall amounts, like I said, those same areas with the monsoonal trough and the ITCZ obviously get the most rainfall right in here, and especially across Madagascar, where pretty much the whole island is getting rainfall amounts over 100 millimeters or 4 inches of rainfall. I do probably flooding occurring with this, I'd expect. In terms of temperature, in last week's video I was mentioning the heat wave across Botswana and southern Africa, in this area right here, which is still occurring this week, I'll show you in a second. You can see that happening down there. Temperatures over near 40 degrees Celsius across much of Botswana here and Mozambique, or about 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And that continues all the way into the weekend. It does cool down a bit by this weekend, a little bit more down to the average. And then obviously this area here, equatorial regions near 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. And the Sahara starts off cool this week. It was as low as 15 degrees Celsius, but it warms up a bit by next week. Getting as high as 25 degrees Celsius possible across much of Egypt here, and across southern portions of Libya and Algeria. Still not too bad. Going next, we'll look at North America, where at the moment, let's look at precipitation, because the main show happening right now is across California, where I made the video a couple days ago about this big storm moving into California. It produced widespread wind gusts over 60, 65, 70 miles per hour across the San Francisco Bay Area region last night. That's about 100 kilometers per hour. And feeder band coming off the Pacific produced huge amounts of rainfall across the Los Angeles area, like I was afraid would happen. I mentioned that in the video, and that unfortunately verified. We saw widespread flooding across to the northwest of Los Angeles, and also across portions of San Francisco and Sacramento, and very high winds. Lots of power, hundreds of thousands of people without power across San Francisco and Sacramento areas at the moment. So yeah, widespread storm caused by this 983 millibar storm. Otherwise, outside of that, we have a storm system moving across the southeastern portions of the United States, and just overall a lot of weaker storms. Nothing too major going on right now. Could get a stronger storm there in Alaska, southern portions of Alaska. By this weekend, otherwise nothing major at the moment. In terms of precipitation amounts over the next 8 to 9 days, nothing. I'm not seeing any huge amounts of rainfall pretty much anywhere except here across southwestern California where that storm system is occurring. Could still get in over 4 inches of rainfall possible. Expected that includes Los Angeles and San Diego. Also, far southern Alaska here could get quite a bit. In general, the entire western portion of the United States getting upwards of maybe an inch or two of rainfall, or precipitation, I should say. And across the southeastern United States, 1 to 3 inches of rainfall possible there over the next week. Otherwise, not seeing a huge amount anywhere else. Maybe southern Canada, upwards half an inch to 1 inch of precipitation. Nothing huge, nothing major going on over the next 8, 9, 10 days. And then in terms of temperature at the moment, like I've been saying, Alaska has been extremely cold. Over the last week, Alaska was getting temperatures as low as negative 50 degrees Celsius. Fairbanks, Alaska was getting their coldest weather in over 10 years. I think since 2012 is what I saw. And just overall, outside of that, very warm weather continues across much of the United States and into southern Canada. Here's today, the freezing line. The freezing line this afternoon is way up into Manitoba and northern Ontario, where for this time of year you'd expect afternoon temperatures of around 0 degrees Celsius, somewhere around this area, that line. But instead, it's way, way far to the north. And that continues for pretty much this entire week. You could see temperatures even getting as high as 10 degrees Celsius. This is by Thursday. Look at this. Temperatures as high as 10 degrees Celsius all the way into the Great Lakes region, well, way, way above average for this time of year. And this has been the case for over the last few weeks. Much of the central eastern United States and southern Canada, extremely warm. Barely any snowfall happening. And that looks like it's going to continue this week and into early next week as we let this play out. Going into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then by the time we get into next week, this is next Tuesday afternoon, the freezing line comes southwards a bit, more so where it should be this year, still a bit to the north. Also, Alaska warms up, not seeing as much widespread temperatures below 0 degrees Fahrenheit or around negative 20 degrees Celsius. That's one reason why we get some colder weather in the southern Canada and the northern U.S. as that ridge breaks down, as that trough breaks down over Alaska. And then going all the way to the end, by next Wednesday, could even see temperatures as low as 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, more where it should be for this time of year across the Great Lakes region. Excuse me. But this is a week away, so don't dwell on these numbers too much, but it'll definitely probably be colder next week, more closer to average. Last thing here, just looking at snowfall. Quick look at snowfall amounts over the next 8 days. Heaviest amounts stay across the higher elevations of the west. And this is not actually much of anything anywhere. Even southern Canada, some areas getting up to 6 inches of snow. Portions of North Dakota, I see. Nothing, these are not huge amounts. I'm not seeing signs of any snowstorm. And the Great Lakes region, barely anything here across the Great Lakes region. And outside of that, Nothing here for the Great Plains, nothing for the coastal Northeast. So overall, just still very, very little snowfall. And then the last area we'll be looking at is South America, where the main thing I've been talking about is that heat wave in Argentina. So we'll start off with that. There we go. You can see it's still, this is for this afternoon today. It's still getting temperatures up to 35 to 40 degrees Celsius across much of central and northern Argentina. That's the case over the next few days. That heat wave's just still continuing. It seems almost endless at this point, but it is breaking down. You'll see. This is up to, by Thursday, you can see a strong cold front moves through, ends the heat wave across the south, while it continues across northern Argentina, but that cold front will be moving to the north, pushing that heat wave out finally. Because as we go into the weekend and into next week, you can see temperatures only getting as high as 30 degrees Celsius, which is more in line where it should be, closer to average. So by this weekend, the heat wave will finally come to an end, and into next week, going into next week's temperatures, this is next Tuesday, no sign of that heat wave coming back. Fairly warm across southern Argentina, actually, 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. That's about 86 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's very warm for southern Argentina, so could see a heat wave developing there next week. But overall, not seeing that major widespread warmth anymore by the time after it breaks down this weekend. Now, as that heat wave does break down, something that hasn't been happening across that area over the last few weeks is rainfall. But as that heat wave breaks down this week, it'll lead to a more wetter pattern for central northern Argentina and portions of Uruguay and Paraguay. Yeah, this is going into Friday. This is the storm system that ends the heat wave right here. See, bringing rainfall into portions of northern Argentina. And as we let that play out, bringing some storms into northern Argentina, potentially into Paraguay. And then going into next week, you can see daily thunderstorms possible, storm system moving through here across northern Argentina into southern Brazil and Uruguay. So as that heat wave breaks down, it gets replaced by a more wetter pattern with storms potentially. And every time you get thunderstorms in this area here, you have to look out for them being severe, because this is an area of the world that does tend to get very strong thunderstorms with hail, strong winds, even tornadoes. It's similar to like portions of the central and eastern United States. This is an area of the world that gets all that extreme thunderstorms that produce tornadoes. So something to keep an eye on next week. And in terms of rainfall amounts, so you can see over the next few days, not a lot, but by the time we get into this weekend and into next week, let's go all the way to the end of the cycle. You can see this, so we haven't seen this in quite some time. Almost the northern half of Argentina into Uruguay here. Northern Argentina and Uruguay. Why almost the entire area is getting over 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, or about 50 to 100 millimeters of rain, equivalent of 2 to 4 inches of rainfall across almost the entire northern half of Argentina and Uruguay, and in the portions of Paraguay. Obviously, the Amazon very wet, but yeah. So maybe potentially looking at some flash flooding possible with these heavier storms next week. Something to keep an eye on. And like I said, the potential for severe thunderstorms as we go into this more wetter pattern for northern Argentina. Something to keep an eye on next week for sure. Overall, that's all I got for today. I know this video was kind of long. I didn't want it to be that long, but it's okay. I hope you guys have a good day. Goodbye.